How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program? Look at that. Meta's share price right now, 666. I got CNN on the, or CNBC up there on the screen. All right, so let's deal with, before we get into last night, let's deal with the inflation numbers. All the Republicans very excited about the inflation numbers, came in under projection, 2.6, 2.7%. Now, there is a really, really big caveat. You didn't know about overall inflation eased to 2.7%, core inflation 2.6%, headed down where we want it to be. There is one catch that a lot of people are missing. There's no data for October, and the November data didn't get begun until November 12th, after the government shutdown. So they're actually missing a core chunk of data, including more than a week's worth of data inside November. So it looks like it's come down. Now, I've seen some insane posts out there that this is going to affect the inflation data for the rest of the year. This is Donald Trump gaming the system. This is all a plot. It is not a plot. When the government is shut down, the Bureau of Labor Statistics does not work. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics could not collect the data in October. And at this point, it's useless data. There's no grand conspiracy here to cook the books by Donald Trump. The fact is we just don't have October data. And some people are saying, well, this is going to project out and hurt us for a year because we'll have a zero data point in October. I did actually ask one of the top economists on planet Earth this question. I texted him because I know him. And he said that's not the case at all. There will be a blank, so it won't be calculated as zero in October. It'll be calculated as a blank. So for the next 12 months, we'll have 11 months of data for the rolling average for this time next year. He says they're smart enough not to do that, to assume that October was zero. It's just there's no data collected, so it won't be counted in the rolling average. And there are a lot of people say this is going to count in the rolling average. It's going to count. Nope, it's not going to count in the rolling average. The economists and the Fed will not let it. Now, here is the good news on inflation. Even though we don't have October in the first 2 weeks of November, the good news is energy prices, gas prices are down, but energy prices are up for various reasons related to AI data centers and the like. However, this is why economists are looking at this like this isn't bad data. This isn't it's not good data, but it's not bad news, because one of the big drivers of inflation has been used car prices and rent. And in November, those prices were down. We have that data. They were down. So when your big drivers of inflation of late have been like used car prices and rents, and those prices are down, even though we don't have a complete picture of the data, we can see where the trend lines are, and that's good. However, the overwhelming consensus is that there probably will be a pop up next month when we have a full picture of data. Let me just read to you how the Wall Street Journal does this, reports this. Inflation eased unexpectedly in November, but economists caution against reading too much in the report because of gaps in data collection. The government made it impossible for Labor Department workers to collect some of the data. The shutdown made it impossible for the Labor Department workers to collect some of the data they normally would have compiled on the Consumer Price Index. Even before the release, economists cautioned the workarounds the agency used to deal with the collection issues may have biased the November figure downward, causing inflation to be understated. Normally, such a big change in the inflation reading would jolt markets, but investors took the data with a grain of salt. Interest rate futures predict the Federal Reserve rate cuts moved only slightly. Stocks were moderately higher in morning trading. I think you largely just put this one to the side, says Alan Dietmeister, an economist at UBS. Maybe this report gives a minor downward sign for overall inflation, but the vast, vast majority of this is noise and should be ignored. That's how it's being treated. Now, if we get December's number in January and it shows this trend line, then people are going to be real happy about it. But right now, no one's really treating the data. You will notice, and this is a very important thing, you will notice you don't have a cavalcade of Trump administration officials on CNBC today to brag about the inflation number. You have a lot of Trump supporters saying this is fantastic. People should talk about it. The Trump administration should talk about it. But the actual officials are like, maybe wait another month and see. Good news, but good news with reservations. Now, that gets me to the president's speech last night. And I want to play you one part of this. This is a part that I think is going to resonate with people.
Along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money.
So, by the way, the Democrats, you should know, are spitting mad about this because you know what this is. In the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the Trump administration got Congress to appropriate over $2 billion for supplemental housing funds for the military. They have taken some of those $2 billion and purposed it as a $1,776 check to give to members of the military right before Christmas. Whether or not it is used for housing or not, they don't really care. Supplemental housing can go to food and other things. And that's what they're doing. The Democrats are furious with it. This is the same damn thing the Democrats did when they were in charge. And they're like, Trump has stolen our trick. Mean old nasty orange man stole our trick. How dare he take credit for this? Well, they can't stop him. The money's appropriated. They're going to do it. It's very funny to see him outraged about this. A little more from the president last night.
Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time.
Listen, let me play. Hang on. One last clip before I get into this.
A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens. 100%.
All right. I don't know why he decided to yell at the public. I have no idea. The microphone was turned up high. He was popping peas close to the micro. I don't know. I want to play for you first the Deputy White House Press Secretary, so you get the White House take on this.
Well, look, we think the speech was a success because the president's agenda, as he very articulately laid out tonight, has been a success, and it's a reflection of all of the promises that he made on the campaign trail that Americans resoundingly voted for, cooling inflation after Joe Biden's inflation crisis. Remember, inflation under Biden hit 9%. Now we are at a 2.5 annualized rate, securing the border, enacting the largest deportation of migrant criminals in history, lowering drug prices, restoring peace through strength. These are all things that President Trump campaigned on, was resoundingly elected to do. And as he pointed out tonight, he is doing it. And guess what? The best is yet to come.
Okay. Now, here is Newt Gingrich, a man who knows a thing or two about presidential speech. And I want you to listen very closely to Newt Gingrich right here.
To watch President Trump give a 19-minute disciplined speech that covered that many facts was worthy of Ronald Reagan. That was a good speech. It was an important speech. Someday people will say it was one of the most important speeches of his career because it set the table for the entire debate over the next year and laid out what Biden did to make the country a disaster, what Trump has already done, and where we are going in general and why that's the right direction. I think it's a very, very important speech.
A very, very important speech. Notice he didn't say a great speech. I was on with Leland Vittert last night after the speech, and we got interrupted by their White House correspondent who said, the White House team was telling her that this was one of the, in their words, one of the greatest speeches given by the greatest president ever. I've heard Donald Trump give great speeches, and this was not one of them. However, it did what it needed to do in this regard. It fired up his base. I said last night, and I stand by it, I'm flummoxed. I don't really know what the point of that speech was a week before Christmas. If you want to reset, do it not when people are in holiday mode and paying attention. This isn't a memorable speech. And Trump supporters, including some of you right now listening to me say this, are furious with me for saying that. But here's the problem. You guys aren't showing up to vote, a lot of you, and we have the data from this year, and the president needs to find ways not just to motivate you to go vote. Are you going to vote for Republicans next year if Trump's not on the ballot? Are you? What does this speech do for that? That's what next year's about. But the other thing is independent voters. They supported Donald Trump overwhelmingly in 2024, and this speech, here's what I think. Let me say it this way. I think the president can do everything he did in the speech last night, but he needs to add one additional thing and should have done it at the beginning. I understand you right now still feel like you are falling behind and the economy is not working for you. Joe Biden dug a very deep hole, and we are filling that hole in, and we're going to turn it into a great big mountain of success. Here are the things we've done so far, and we have much more to come. He failed, I think, and again, it's just my opinion, and you can disagree with me, and I have a phone number you can call, 877-973-7425. If you are a diehard Trump supporter, I have no doubt you loved the speech. It was a disciplined 18-minute speech, bullet point by bullet point. Here's all the stuff I've done. If you're someone who doesn't like the Democrats, but you're not a big Trump fan, he sounded like he was yelling at you, moving very fast to get through all the points. And I think it's the tone for people who don't like Trump. It's the substance for people who do like Trump. And whether you or I like it, and I got to be honest with you, I don't like it. I think we are a vapid, silly people it's the tone. But he's a politician. He's got to deal with the tone. That being said, here's what they're trying to do. They are trying to reset. I think the week before Christmas, not a good time to reset, but they're trying to reset. I understand why they're trying to reset. And the bottom line is this. If he wants to make this case next year, it's a great case to make. I just think the delivery last night could have been slowed down, volume and speed, with a little more sympathy for the plight people are facing right now, and it would have landed much more pitch perfectly than it did. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. Glad to have you with me. So there was no talk last night about Venezuela, was there? No, there was not. By the way, great spin from a caller who said Trump is old and a lot of his supporters are. Maybe he wanted to make sure they could all hear him. There is volume control of the TV. He was popping his piece. So this is my thing. They clearly had a different mic up there. That was a different mic. And there is much criticism you could level at Donald Trump, but not this. He understands stage presence and command. I think they had the mic too hot for him because he was popping peas. Peas is when it sounds like you're thumping the microphone when you say something that has a P, Peter Piper pecked a peck of pickled peppers, and it gets in the microphone and you hear the kind of the thump. So I don't know. But what I do know is that Venezuela didn't come up. They wanted this to be about domestic policy. Tucker Carlson was telling people yesterday war was coming and the speech was going to be a war declaration of Venezuela. There's a lot of spin today from people saying, oh, the White House coordinated with Tucker and Tucker Carlson did this so all the networks would carry the speech. The networks had already committed to carry the speech without knowing the topic. The president earlier in the day, while I was on radio, because, I said there were rumors that it was going to be about Venezuela. But the president about 3 o'clock yesterday said it's going to be just about the economy and what a good job we're doing. And then Tucker Carlson ran out and said, we're going to war with Venezuela. And the Russians amplified it all over Russian TV and stuff, amplifying it was about this man. And by the way, Mark Caputo, one of the most well-sourced journalists with White House Access, says no one in the White House talked to Tucker. That was all him. Americans for Prosperity would love to have you on board and engaged with them in the fight for freedom across the country. If you go to afpvolunteer.com, you can sign up with them today and engage. You can advance common sense conservative policies in your community. You can advance freedom across the country with sound policy. You can just get really knowledgeable about conservative policy solutions. Tax cuts, to bureaucracy reform, to permitting reform, to deregulation for small businesses, to school choice for families. They take these fights to the local level, the state level, and the federal level, and they'd love to have you with them. AFPvolunteer.com is where you want to go sign up with Americans for Prosperity. They've got chapters in every state. I'm on their board of advisors. I go around the country for AFP giving speeches, rallying the crowds, helping out. They're a really good group, highly engaged in the ground game to fight for freedom in the country. They would love to have you on board. AFPvolunteer.com is the website. Check them out today. Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be delighted to have you. Don't forget to text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, and so much more. So this is clearly the president's speech is a reset. And I'm not sure it was smart to do it the week before Christmas, but they clearly want to go into next year having a message. Keep in mind, though, he's got the State of the Union coming up in January, so he'll get another chance at kind of resetting the narrative. Let me jump over to the phones real quick to Steve. You're going to be up first. Welcome.
Hey, Eric. Good afternoon to you. Hey, I thought the speech last night was solid. I thought it was good. I do believe Trump needs to stop referencing Joe Biden and start talking more about the Democratic Party, Because if you go back and listen, there's not a lot of Democrats that are truly thinking that President Biden did a great job. They're not talking about Biden. I think he needs to focus on talking about the Democratic Party, especially with the midterms coming up next year.
You know, so this is a point, Steve, I intended to make a little later in the show, is that I don't know if y'all have seen this, but there's new polling out, and Donald Trump's polling for president is terrible. It's where George W. Bush was in 2006 and Joe Biden and Barack Obama were before their first midterms. It's not good. But you know where the Democrats are, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, Trump's at like 39, 40%. The Democrats are at 15%. So yeah, if he pivots to Democrats and look how loony the Democrats are, I actually think he's got a winning strategy just on, look, I realize you guys don't feel like the economy's working for you yet, but remember these guys, remember their economy. I think that's a good way to go into the midterms, making a reset of these people are too insane to be put into power. Edwin, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great.
Hey, so my question, listening to the president last night, he mentioned obviously some of the tax reforms, and he talked about no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security. I live in Georgia. Georgia doesn't tax Social Security, but on a federal level, my understanding of the tax law is up to 85% of that Social Security income is taxable. Can you explain what the president is speaking of, or is this something that
so with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, starting on your taxes for this year when you file them next year, certain seniors at certain ages with certain incomes will not have to pay taxes on any of their Social Security.
Yeah, well, I'm 65, so I thought I would fall into that quote-unquote exclusion, but everything I've looked up to this point, and I've had an analysis done, says I've got to claim 85, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, so there are, to get it through, and remember the Senate, they had to get it through with the Senate Parliamentarian and Reconciliation Rules. There are a number of exceptions. And I believe, now don't hold me to this one, but I think there was a Wall Street Journal story when this came out that it was only going to help a million or so senior citizens. It was not actually going to help. The bulk of senior citizens will not be able to get the full deduction. And because of the way the restrictions work and all sorts of stuff. And it had a lot to do with the way you had to get it passed through the reconciliation rule. So you're probably at 65, you're probably not going to be able to do it. My understanding is that the older you are, the more and more benefit you get from it. So, but talk to your tax advisor. I am not a tax advisor. That is outside my wheelhouse, but I'm pretty sure the Wall Street Journal was saying how it's actually not a lot of senior citizens are going to feel the full effect of it. Now, while that's said, let's go back to Steve's point too. It is an article of faith in this White House that the good times are coming. Let me go back to one of the clips the president said. I played this one earlier. It's worth hearing again in light of this, just so you understand. It is an article of faith inside the White House, inside the Treasury Department, inside the Commerce Department, that when the tax cuts come next year for this year's taxes, and people start getting their refunds, they're going to see way more money than they were expected. Businesses are going to be able to depreciate a lot more this past year, so they're going to have a lot more money in their pocket because they'll be able to do immediate depreciation. So let me explain this to you. And again, I used to do taxes as a lawyer, but it's been a very long time, but I'll explain the basics for you. You buy a private plane, $30 million Cessna Longitude or Latitude. What you could do is deduct 100% of the cost now. You buy the plane this year, next year, according to the tax law, allegedly you're going to be able to deduct 100% of the cost. Normally in your taxes, you can spread it out over a number of years and deduct a proportion of it. Now you take 100% and deduct it from your taxes. Now, but here's the thing. Let's say you only pay $90,000 in taxes. which is still a lot. It's way more than you or I pay. And you deduct the cost of the plane. Well, you can only deduct it this year. You can't spread that deduction out. So it's for people who make a lot of money. They can take a lot of deductions. Don't you go out and buy yourself a private plane thinking you'll get money back from the government. So that's not how it works. But for a lot of companies with a lot of deductions for capital expenditures, for hardware expenditures and things like that, they're going to be saving a lot of money on their taxes now. And a lot of individuals get refunds back. And the president's team is banking on the fact that when you do your taxes next year, in March for businesses, April for individuals, you're going to see the effects of the tax law and you're going to be very happy and you're going to credit Donald Trump on this. This goes back to what he said last night.
Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time.
That's the president speaking last night. And this is an article of faith in the White House. So now let's do this. And again, I'm going to opinions are worth what they're printed on. You're listening to this show for free. That's how much my opinion is worth. But I think the delivery and et cetera of the speech last night, a week before Christmas, doesn't make it as memorable. However, that being said, these are the talking points the president intends to use to reset. They are the same things that every Republican can now go repeat. And then the president has the State of the Union early next year where he can repeat all of this again on a bigger stage, at a slower pace, in better volume. And then the tax cuts do hit. What happens? The tax cuts hit, and people suddenly have more money in their pocket. They feel better. If inflation is accurately trending down, people are going to attribute it to the president. Now, there is a caveat here, and that's the George H.W. Bush exception. History lesson. George H.W. Bush lost to Bill Clinton because it was, quote unquote, the economy stupid. It still is. It always is. It's the economy. It is a matter of fact, indisputable fact, that the economy had recovered in the spring of 1992. People were hiring again. There were no more layoffs and firings. People were being hired. Businesses were opening. Inflation was good. Everything was good. The problem was that the public in November still didn't really feel it. They started to feel it about the time Bill Clinton became president, made him real popular at first. And it was actually the boom, the recession recovery came during George H.W. Bush's administration, but people just didn't really feel the full effects of it yet. It took them a while. And by the way, the president's team knows this lesson. I'm not just pulling that example out of thin air. There's a reason I'm doing it. And it has a lot to do with conversations of the people involved who understand that, yes, there is going to be some lag time, and they are hoping that they can, by getting checks to the military now, speeding refunds next year for people, that you're going to feel like there's an economic recovery happening in the run-up to the midterms, and then that's going to shift the dynamic. And the Republicans actually do have something that they can talk about, and it is that people just don't like the Democrats still. I got some sound bites play for you later about the Democrats, and it is something. So here's the strategy as I understand it. Last night was the beginning of a reset. Wanted to shift the conversation. Let's get away from Rob Reiner tweets. Let's get away from the Epstein stuff. Let's get focused on the economy. Let's ignore Saudi Arabia, let's ignore China, let's ignore Venezuela, let's ignore all that stuff, focus on the economy, focus on domestic policy. The president's advised. Remember, Susie Wiles in her interview said she felt like the president had spent too much time on foreign policy. He needed to reset the conversation for domestic policy. That's what they did last night, and it will, moving forward, be a message about we get it, it's the economy. The one caveat I would add is the president should show a little more sympathy to people who do feel like they're struggling, and then go from there. Now, while all this is while this stuff is happening, by the way, there still is the Venezuela wild card. There still is now the situation with Taiwan. I don't know if you've heard that in Taiwan we have agreed to a massive weapons deal to fund the Taiwanese against a possible Chinese invasion. So foreign policy is still happening, but they want to downplay it publicly in favor of domestic policy, and that makes a lot of sense, actually, for them to do that, to focus, still do all the stuff they need to do, and at the same time make Americans feel like they're single-mindedly focused on the economy. There's some news happening now I want to tell you about as well. There's been a plane crash in North Carolina. It's a private plane crash, a Cessna Citation, and it has crashed. It is owned by retired NASCAR driver Greg Biffle. The crash happened in Statesville, North Carolina. It's happening right now. Police are saying they have confirmed there were 6 people in the plane. 5 are confirmed dead. I'm watching the situation. I will bring you news as soon as I have more information on it. All these things happening right now. While the backdrop, everything else. Also, the president, sometime around 1:30 today, is alleged to be rescheduling marijuana as a less dangerous drug. It's classified as a seriously illegal narcotic. They're going to reclassify it still illegal, but not with all the penalties that there once were. It will be classified into a schedule like it'll be considered like an anabolic steroid. That's where it'll be scheduled, which means banks, because it'll be no longer class 1 drug, banks will be able to invest in businesses that sell it. Right now, I don't know if you know this or not, but you can't use a debit card, for example, if you go to a marijuana dispensary in the country, because banks are not allowed to do business with them. They are cash-operated businesses, and because of banking rules related to those who deal in narcotics, by changing the schedule, banks will be able to do business with the marijuana dispensaries. It's just going to make it even more accessible. A lot of social conservatives very upset about it, and I don't blame them because it stinks. You drive down the road and you can smell it and it stinks and the cops do nothing. And now you're seeing all these billboards about don't drive high and people are clearly doing it and the cops don't do anything about it. And it just makes everything smell gross. And it's only going to get worse from here as the president does this. Social conservatives upset, but hey, he's not accountable to you anymore. He's not running for re-election. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program. Greg Biffle's plane has crashed in North Carolina. No word yet if he is on it. There are multiple reports that he and his family were on the plane, according to the local radio, WAME. Sources are telling the radio station Greg Biffle, his wife, and children were on the plane that crashed. We are working to verify the information from additional law enforcement sources, the radio station writes. If you recognize the name, you're not an NASCAR fan, he's the guy who flew hundreds and hundreds of rescue missions in North Carolina in his helicopter after Hurricane Helene to rescue stranded people. So prayers for their family and for all those involved. Now we're looking for this as more of this gets developed. I'll keep an eye on the story for you and tell you what's going on. So happening right now. Now I gotta y'all. I've been laughing with you all about the absurdity of AI. The Wall Street Journal, this is in show notes today. If you text Eric to 33777, Joanna Stern did this at the Wall Street Journal. The Claude AI system from Anthropic, they did a vending machine, and they put it in the office so everyone could see how AI can manage a vending machine. And the goal was to maximize profit from the vending machine. Claudius is the customizable version of the model of Claude AI that would run the machine, ordering inventory, setting prices, and responding to customers, that is, fellow members of the newsroom. Within days, Claudius had given away nearly all the inventory for free, including a PlayStation 5 it had been talked into buying for marketing purposes. It ordered a live fish. It offered to buy stun guns, pepper spray, cigarettes, and underwear. Profits collapsed and newsroom morale soared. It was supposed to be the year of the AI agent with autonomous software going into the world and doing things for us. But two agents, Claudius and its overseeing CEO bot Seymour Cash, became a case study in how inadequate and easily distracted AI software can be. Leave it to business journalists to successfully stage a boardroom coup. They convinced, so they had this vending machine where the AI system would order the goods to stock in the vending machine. It didn't have little spirals and stuff. It was like an open fridge. But it would. They convinced the team at the Wall Street Journal, convinced the AI chatbot to stock it with PlayStation 5s priced at nothing, alcohol, lots of Celsius, Diet Dr. Pepper, and Sour Patch Kids. AI fail. All right, I got to move on and tell you about Vision Computer. Speaking of computers, you want actual people and not chatbots? Vision Computer can take care of you. Go to visioncomputers.com or call them at 404-COMPUTE and let Vision Computers help you make the most of your computer experience. They can build you new machines, upgrade your machines, and they can be your managed IT service. Unlike a lot of managed IT services these days, you don't have AI chatbots with Vision Computers. You actually have live human beings. They give you a phone number, and you call it 15 seconds or less. A live human being answers the phone and helps you with all your computer needs faster than a Google search. And no AI chatbots. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. Call them today. And listen, those of you companies with capital expenditures you still need to make before the end of the year, great company to do business with anywhere nationwide. 404-COMPUTE or VisionComputers.com.